our consultant and 40B coordinator, Mr. Moody, has updated the, looks like the final draft of the conditions concerning the project. There's been clearly some heavy work done in the backgrounds that most of us, or some of us, or maybe all of us are aware of, with the exception of maybe one or two. Clearly, this project and the other projects are water-driven. The developer, through the process, has worked with the board to be able to get to a close of enough aspect that this board should continue to move to the final stage here tonight. There's been some developments. Is that your attorney calling in?
No, it's not. Should I do so, Mr.?
Go ahead.
Put him on.
Yeah, put him on.
It's not him, it was someone else.
But put him on. You can just
Put him on so we can hear it.
Why don't you?
So during the working sessions, for the board members, that you've received some of the communications. The water company, of course, is the driving force. This project and other projects can't go on without the water company. But I want the public to understand that when a developer like this comes in, the need for water is drastic. Currently, we can't even activate these projects without water.
Speakerphone now.
However, they had sat with the Milford Water Company. They've been banging it out for weeks. The water company clearly would like to get one of the well fields up and running. To get one of the well fields up and running, you know, this can cost anywhere between 1.7 to 2.5 million. If we do not add an additional unit in this community, that well field doesn't go online. If we work with certain aspects of development teams and applicants, the wells come back online and the ratepayer doesn't have to pay for them. In this case, we have two major 40B projects that we're hearing through and at the final stages. They are agreeing to help the town of Milford get the well field back up and running because they need water. But in addition to that, we are going to end up with a lot of excess water, which we would need drastically. A lot of you have heard my comments from the water company, some of them maybe not good, concerning the availability of water going back to 2027 and the question marks concerning those. However, even if we open up this well, we still have other aspects of wells that are down that still need to come back up online. So therefore, we had actually have the conditions in front of us. I could take a motion to open up a couple of these conditions, one of them being the units, if someone wants to make a motion to open up.
Yeah, you need a motion to reconsider that last.
I'd like to see if anybody would like to make a motion to reconsider the number of units.
I'd like to make a motion.
A motion by Mark to reconsider. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Charlie. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. So we currently, right now, are showing, we have conditioned the particular project to 250 units, and they have applied for 300. We have done work sessions going back and forth. They actually have agreed to put the boulevard section back into the plan that was taken out early on, which is a major improvement and a very cost aspect to the project. That is in one of your exhibits. The only difference is it will not go all the way to that second wetland. Again, as we go down these projects, and Mass Housing takes a look at these applications, it has to be financially feasible in order to even do the project. When we start to cut the throat off of the squirrel, then nothing can happen. So after reviewing some of the communications and discussing the aspects of what the developers are bringing in from a cost standard to save the ratepayers of this community probably a good $2 million or more, I think we need to readdress the aspects of the number of dwelling units. Now, please understand that they could appeal this, we had 250 units in there originally from the last hearing, and that was voted in. And if they appealed that and they won at mass housing, then the appeals process through the judicial side, and won, they could have built 300 units. They're giving us a suggestion that even with the major influx of two development groups splitting a $2 million improvement, that they're still at a break point at 250 units. So they're suggesting that maybe we split the difference using a multiple of 4, and that's only because of the way the buildings are laid out. And I need to have a discussion with the board members here on what you feel comfortable with. I don't know if I agree to split it in half, and it's 26 units, which brings it to 276.
268, I think, is what they suggested.
I've got it.
From Attorney Bobrowski's,
Using a multiple of 4, the note says 276, and that's from Mark Bobrowski.
oh, okay, I could be wrong, I just thought I remembered 268.
Okay.
May I find in, Mr. Chairman, just to
Sure.
correct the record?
Sure. We have Attorney Mark Bobrowski by remote. Go ahead, Mr. Bobrowski.
I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman, thank you. The conversation I had with Mr. Moody involved restoring or taking off one floor or 32 units, not splitting the difference, which means that we would be willing to accept 268 units, reducing this ultimately by 32 units, just to be clear. That's one floor off one of the buildings.
Okay, so 268 units, correct?
Correct. A multiple of 4, correct.
Okay. All right, let me ask you a question. From the water company's perspective, are you able to provide the zoning board of appeals a copy of some confirmation that you are in agreement with the Milford Water Company?
We have an initial document.
Okay.
Gone back and forth between ourselves and the water company's attorney. We haven't reached a final form of it. We've been in further conversations with them about it, and we will be able to provide you with that. We don't have it yet, but
Okay.
we will. And we've also been in conversations with Gutierrez. I don't know whether they will or won't sign that agreement, but there's certainly a desire on the part of everybody here to cooperate.
Just if I can just point out for us, a reminder, Mr. Chairman, we will always have a condition in each one of these special permits that there'll be no foundation permit or building permit unless and until they have water available. So that condition will always control, and if their dealings with the water company fall apart, then they're not going to be able to build these facilities until the water company on its own produces the necessary water. So that control stays with it all the way.
All right,
Can there be any work done to the site?
They can move dirt around, sure.
They can't pull a permit, though. They
Can't get a permit, can't even get a foundation permit.
Right.
A lot of times you'll get a limited foundation permit,
I'm
they can't even
confident,
get that.
I'm confident, based on our most recent conversation with Mr. Condrey, that we'll be able to do the necessary work that will result in the town having a pretty significant benefit out of it.
Well, let me just explain my concern, and I think maybe the board's concern, and I understand exactly what you're trying to do. A lot of times, when you get into the development aspects of these, as you know, there can be creative ways to get around things. One of them being that you can pay over time, whether it be by one building being put online versus offline. Is there any discussion concerning any of that? Because we have this building permit aspect in there. So this board, town council, and our 40B coordinator needs to have a level of comfort that just a letter doesn't indicate
When I say a letter, I mean a written agreement by both
full, all right,
parties.
and you'll supply that written agreement as part of the condition. Doesn't need to go into the decision, but it needs to be provided.
And we'd be foolish if we didn't do it ourselves anyway.
Exactly.
Okay, so our interests are aligned. I think the only thing that's not aligned here is the proportionality, what I call the Dolan versus Teagard aspect of this, which says that we're gonna get 3 or 4% of the increase, but the town gets, and we pay for it.
Life is like that.
I understand. I would certainly, if you wanted to go in the direction of 276, we'd be happy to do that, but if Mr. Bobrowski has already broached the topic at another number. I'd like to get this done tonight, as would you.
Okay.
So.
And if that number works without an appeal, 268, I'd like to hear a motion concerning that number. Does a board member have a motion concerning the 200, not to exceed 268 units?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve this application with the requirement that the units do not exceed 268 units for the total development, and that they are aligned, the development is aligned with the latest, other than the changes, 268 conditions as
As they were
stated
drafted July 3rd.
July 3rd.
We do have a few comments on them, Mr. Chairman, but I don't think they're material.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second for discussion? A second? Okay.
If I may, sir, just kind of flip through these with you a little bit.
Sure.
First of all, the address is wrong. It's not.
All right, let's go one item at a time. Just point out where you want to be so we're all
Procedural
on the
history,
same page.
page 1, number 1. It's not 1171 Lock, it's 171 Lock.
There you go.
I flip a few pages. And we understand the narratives that you've put in.
What page are you on?
I'm on page 4, where you talk about the water and you, and
Those are the board's findings, those really aren't negotiable,
Okay.
but the finding, if this all happens, and you've agreed, as you've indicated, to the 268,
Yeah.
the findings will change somewhat to also represent the developer's agreement with that, so that it becomes part of the findings. But the rest of the findings, in terms of the water, that's reality, and that's the findings of
The
the
only
board.
thing that I wish to raise, and it's because it's after the date that you closed your hearing, is the fact that you have a June 11th letter from Milford Water that talks about, that's rather encouraging as it relates to.
That's all fine, but the reality, the rest reflects the reality on the ground today.
Obviously, on page 5, you've got under your decision, you've got a unit number.
Right, that's all gonna have to change.
You have several points within your decision where you talk about us being held to the plan. And Mark was good enough to couch me on what the regulations are as far as what are substantial and what are not substantial changes to the plan.
You're talking about the plan to be recorded?
I'm talking about, you're talking about the plan of
The
record.
record plan, which is essentially the last set that you submitted, as it will be amended by the other terms of this decision in the sketches.
The thing that I'm concerned about as it relates to the plan of record isn't so much the civil aspects, which you can certainly understand that if we shrink the number of units, it'll change the soil disposal system layout, things like that. That's
Right.
understood, okay? And as
It's proportionate.
as
Yeah.
proportionate. The thing that I'm concerned about is I would like to prevail upon the Zoning Board of Appeals to understand that the architecture that you have in your package is conceptual at best.
We understand that.
Okay, but because as I read this literally, it says that we're held to what that is, and I'd like to believe that that's
The
not. really
plan, the
intent.
plan is, and again, you didn't provide a full set of architecturals to begin with. It is considered a conceptual process.
You'll come in with final plans near the end point, go over them. If there's anything that looks substantial, that may be a problem, but if not, the fact that they're final plans as opposed to conceptual will not be a problem.
Yeah, I think based on the regulations, I think you'll find them all to be insubstantial because we're all shrinking.
You may be right, but we'll review that when the time comes.
You have two sections that are a little bit of conflict, and they have to do
Page?
with, page 11, number 8. And then, I don't know what page it is, but D1, but if you look at number 8 on page 11, and then you look at, hold on, I'll find it for you.
Rooster in here?
It's the phone.
Yeah, it's just Mark on the phone. And then on page 21, D1,
What number, I'm sorry?
number 1 on D1, and number 8 on, I don't know what this is page 11, number 8.
Yeah, okay.
These seem to be a little bit in conflict in the way they discuss the same thing. I respectfully request that you have it read as it does in D1, and that will work together to go to Mass DOT, rather than the way number 8 is written on page 11, where it basically says, go off, do it, and if you don't get it right,
No,
come
no,
back.
maybe you've got an earlier version. At Mark's suggestion, number 8 now says, the first sentence as it was, and then it says the town will use its best efforts to assist the applicant in
Okay.
working with Mass DOT to
ensure
ensure
the
the requested changes.
changes.
I think you're working on from an earlier version, so
I'm sorry.
that's in there already.
Okay. Trash pickup, page 15.
Page 15.
Page 15, number 41. I'd like to go to 7 o'clock in the afternoon, in the evening for that, if I could.
Sort of makes sense.
A lot of these guys, you know, they push the dumpsters out early in the morning or late at night, and they get picked up sometime in that cycle, but giving them till 7 o'clock would be a little more standard.
I don't have a problem with that. Trust me, if if your tenants have a problem with it, they'll let you know.
Of course they will.
So we'll change that to 7.
Also on page 16, I'm not sure whether this covers it or not. 16, number 42, we're talking about irrigation water.
Right.
And then when we get to,
There are two provisions, and they're not inconsistent.
not inconsistent?
No, they're really not. This,
Oh, okay.
yeah, they're really not. You can read anything as inconsistent, but these are not inconsistent. They're perfectly consistent.
One of the things I was hoping for on page 16, C2, was that you were gonna say, we don't owe you anything on that account right now?
What's that?
Peer review
I
account?
can't guarantee that.
Right
Can't
now.
guarantee it?
I can't guarantee that.
No, we have not run over the original amounts.
No.
Okay.
Right now, but the
Oh, we
future-
have, yes, we have.
No, not we have not yet.
For you.
No, even with that, even with me and Melissa, we all work so cheap.
You're
that
okay?
We're still under the
Don't
45,000.
say that, Jerry.
Well, we can run up some
Spread
bills.
the rest of it on this table.
Okay,
But we monitor that, and when the time comes, we'll let you know.
all right. I think that's pretty much it. Those are my nitpicky little comments.
Okay, you sure you covered them all, though?
I don't see any problem.
Don't forget the mootness of the median.
The what?
What?
The medium is gonna be added in there.
No, the mootness.
median.
You
Yeah,
said
that's,
the mootness.
Mark, that's been, it came out in the email as more, but I figured out it meant moot,
Okay,
and
great.
it's already been
You
taken
can't have
out.
both a boulevard and a median.
That's all straightened out.
Mark, you have anything else? Mark?
No, that was it for me.
Okay, all right. All right, so currently we have a motion on the table and a second to bring the unit count to, what was it, Charlie?
268.
200, not to exceed 268 units. All those in favor? Opposed? 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Okay? I believe we need a motion to accept the conditions as outlined in the July 3rd, agreement with the changes that we outlined, and we do need to have one word change that we just did on page.
Yeah, we'll make those changes.
We'll make that small change.
We rocked the ball. And what you should be voting now is, having voted on the 268, the final vote really be to authorize the chairman to execute vote the decision with the changes discussed tonight, and then vote to authorize the chairman to execute a decision when we put the final draft together.
Okay, so we're gonna need a motion to accept as it was written.
Well, again, you'd
The
be
current
actually,
decision is drafted.
decision with the amendments
With
we-
authorization for finalization.
yeah, because I gotta put the final draft together, and you'll sign the final draft, we'll file it with the town clerk, and everything will flow from there.
Do you have a second on that?
Second.
And second by Mark. Also, just note that the drafts are in here concerning the Boulevard and
But all the
Whispering
exhibits
Pine.
now should be attached to each one, and those exhibits, of course, supersede the plan of record, if you will. So there's a difference between the plan of record and the Whispering Pine design, or the Boulevard, and those controls. So
Those controls.
that language is in there that does that.
With that, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. That is our only hearing tonight. Thank you for joining us, and we'll move on to the next project.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Mr.